Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology turned podcast. Everyone, welcome back. Today on the show we have the one, the only, Mr. Nathan Evans. He is of course, just a all-around contributor. He helps us with events, and every last Friday of the month he joins us to talk all things pop culture, tech news, things that might have slipped by us or things that didn't, but we of course want to talk about them with Nathan. He's always fun to talk to, and a great way to kind of close out a month. And my goodness, a month flew by without me even noticing. So with that being said, he is, and also of course Popzara.com is going to have a lot more of what he and his team are up to, including a recent podcast and many reviews. So with that being said, computeramerica.com, that's where you'll find everything, including links to everything that we talk about, links to Popzara.com, links to the podcast, links, all of them. Ladies and gentlemen, it's like a whole chain of stuff. So, with that being said, also find social media and articles, reviews, everything that we do. Check out the website. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead, bring Nathan on, and he is managing editor of Popzara.com, where he and his team go out there and try to get a little bit of everything. They have book reviews, game reviews, product reviews. They of course create their own podcast. They have. Nathan, I don't know how fully, and I know that it was up and running, but how fully you've really embraced it, but able to turn everyday articles into little tiny podcast snippets that you can, of course, listen to on the go, easy peasy. I don't know how much you've embraced that.
Snippet, it's the whole damn article. Snippets.
well, snippet as in a podcast can last an hour.
Snippets.
The articles last 3 to 4 minutes. It's definitely a little. It'd be kind of cool if you could download the podcast, which I know you can do, and then intersperse them with your daily listening, and then of course hey, a little Popzara sprinkled in here, there, and everywhere. Kind of cool.
Are we a spice? Now?
Exactly. You are the cayenne to people's phones. So with that being said, Nathan, welcome back onto the program.
Welcome back, man. And I was going to say, some may say I would say double dipping. I would say taking advantage of the content we have and using it to maximize the best exposure.
I have long with Computer America because, and I know that these services are just trying to, increase business and, kind of really push people. But there was a number of podcasting places and a number of website, whatever. They want you to create your own app, for something, for someone to download. They want you to create your own little ecosystem that you kind of trap and pull people in. I know that you have places that do that, but take let's say the New York Times, for instance, or Financial Times. They want you to come in, pay the $3, pay the $1, or just kind of keep you in the ecosystem. I think you have a very similar approach to Popzara that we do here at Computer America, where we just want to be everywhere. If wherever you happen to want to be, we don't want to uproot you. We just want to be there as well. So,
well, but despite the fact we don't, earn the millions of dollars of New York Times, and we're exactly the same. No, but
don't worry. New York Times doesn't earn the millions New York Times used to either.
Well, I'll say this: we discussed it before, and I'm not going to comment on the specifics of it. But there was a large following of video game entertainment theme podcasters and writers that are out of business now. It's called Waypoint. It's run by Vice Media. It was running to the ground. And the problem is, do you do it your own way or do you latch on to an existing brand? And I got to tell you, if I was starting off right now, I don't know what I would do. My advice is, if you're a writer, if you're a podcaster, if you're someone in the creative field and you have an idea, it can be daunting to look at this landscape and say, whatever. I mean, the fact is that anybody can, with a cell phone with no experience, can make their own podcast and become very successful, or TikTok or whatever. It's the most exciting thing in human history. It's the most daunting thing in human history. I wish you luck. Just remember, don't sell out your soul, but if you do, send me checks. So
there you go. So, but professional advice aside, of course, Nathan, why don't you go ahead and tell the nice folks out there what you and your team try to do out there at Popzara?
Well, we try and occasionally succeed, make pretty good content. Basically, a nice swatch, a bazaar of culture, as we call it. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Gaming, movies, technology, books, like you mentioned. Thank you. Without the snark, try to do it positively. Try to keep the politics to a side, because frankly, people are sick of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes you just want to talk about a thing, and you don't want to discuss the dynamics of the thing or how it approaches or encroaches on another thing. Sometimes, literally, Evil Dead Rise is just Evil Dead Rise. Super Mario is just Super Mario. And sometimes a cell phone is just a cell phone, and there's really not much else to it. I mean, sometimes it is. Sometimes it could be an invitation to a conversation about sweatshops in China and child slave labor and all this stuff. But sometimes it's just a phone. And sometimes
True.
you don't want to, well, sometimes you just want butter and popcorn.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I think we have a number of stories that are also, kind of food for thought, but at the same time, they're interesting. We're gonna have fun discussion about each one of these. But ladies and gentlemen, if you want to find out more, computeramerica.com will have all the show notes. So if there's any stories where you're like, no way Nathan can be right about that, well, hey, fact check them and go on over to the show notes. And we'll have links to all of the sources that we kind of pull from. And Nathan, I think the first one we're going to do is this one from Ars Technica about Microsoft and Windows 11 getting a sliver, a tiny bit of iMessage. And by the way, as a mixed household that I am, myself, iPhone, because Craig wouldn't have it any other way, and then my wife is diehard Android. Our group chat messages, I will say, everyone in my family, we had iPhones and we never really questioned it. That's just what it was. And it all worked pretty good, because everything within iPhone's little garden wall worked very well. As soon as we brought in an Android user, man, continues to be to this day a horrible chatting experience when you loop in anyone outside of iMessage. So this is big news, because Apple has often seen iMessage as one of the reasons people even buy iPhone. So what caught your attention about this?
Or Apple products, we should say. iPhone, Apple products.
Yes.
You basically just updated the story of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, but instead of race relations, it's now like different technology ecosystems. Like, are you a blue dot or are you a green dot? In this household, we're blue dots, damn it. No,
but then green dots come into dinner.
And green dots came in and they just changed the world. Love is love. But I will say this, long story short, iMessage rocks. iMessage is the best chatting thing out there.
It's very nice.
Stock. There are comparable things like WhatsApp and all that, but generally speaking, though, iMessage makes it dumb and fun, and it's really simple, and Apple's been very careful about it. Basically, iMessage is to Apple what like Google search is to Google. Like, it's primary. It's a primary thing, and people say, oh, it's just a chat thing. It is not. If it was so easy, then why did Google have like 50 different chat apps that they've, sponsored and murdered and merged?
Google Message and Google Hangouts and Google Meetings
Talk was the
and
best. Google Talk was the one you guys Hangouts. That was the best thing Google's ever done, and they killed it off. I don't know why. It was good, but the idea is that if you live in the Apple world, which is kind of like living in North Korea but with better grocery stores, you have access to Apple stuff, which is you live on Safari, whatever. You have iMessages, everybody's blue bubbles. I can send you creative text messages, and it doesn't require
nice little emojis.
Yeah. And when I used to be a Mac person, I had a Mac laptop for a while. I missed having iMac because I would always, switch over and I would get my messages. It was really productive. Since I switched back to Windows, I don't have that, and I missed it. And I can tell you, it's like, I know how heroin addicts feel a little bit now, because like I need my iMessage.
You're fiending.
But but I don't like Android in the way that Android people do. I'm not stubborn. I'm a realist, and I think I represent a good portion of the people that love Apple products but don't like the Apple products at the same time. Your wife is the same way, I think. It's just that she prefers Android for whatever reason. But the problem is that if she would use iMessage in a heartbeat if she could, but she can't because they don't have it. And Apple's not going to bring it there because it really is a killer app. It's not coming to Windows. It's not, and for good reason. But what they've done though is Windows has a program called Phone Link, which Apple people probably never heard of because they what? But so basically, it's an app on your Windows 11 that up until now has worked exclusively with Android. You can sync it. You can get a version, so to speak, of what iMessage is.
I was very disappointed when I tried to link my iPhone up to it. I think at most it let me receive calls through my operating system, but like that was in basic text.
Did you do it yet? Because I can't. It's not on mine yet. I don't have the update yet.
Well, I'm thinking of a previous version where, and this was in Windows 10, that you could link your phone to your operating system, and you could receive text messages and phone calls through your PC.
From what I've seen, this is a little more extensive. It does let you send and receive text messages. Does not do group chats. Does not do videos. Does not do images, but it can help your workflow. Because I mean, like you, I have my iPhone sitting right next to me. I have a multi-purpose keyboard that I use specifically when I have to type long iMessages. Right. Because there's a lot of people who don't do emails. They do not do phone calls. You have to type messages. And so I have a function Bluetooth keyboard for that. But I would just love being able to use my keyboard. I don't need the fancy stuff in talking to people. Like my green dot, I call my green dot friends. I have a lot of green dot friends. And I would take a pink friend too. But the fact is that I don't like switching keyboards and everything. And I know it sounds like first world problems, but you do kind of get spoiled having a Macintosh. You do kind of get spoiled, and you do kind of miss it when it's not there. And if this can curb the taste, I think one of two things. One, Apple may actually support it more, or Apple will kill it. And like Apple's integration with Windows has been horrendous so far. They have a terrible, terrible iCloud drive. I don't know if you've seen what they've done to iTunes. They've taken iTunes and they split it apart into a massive confusion. iTunes does not work well on Windows. It does not work well on Windows.
No, they split it up into QuickTime and iTunes music, and then iTunes. Yeah, it's all over the place.
Can I say this real quick? The best comparison would be Spotify. So iTunes was Apple everything. It was your podcasts, your audiobooks, whatever for your Windows. It's what you got. You just suck it up, Buttercup, because that's all you got. Spotify will run on anything. It'll run on a browser. It'll run on apps. It'll run on anything. That's why Spotify is more popular, because it runs on anything.
It'll run on fridge. Yeah, run on anything, and it runs pretty good. And iTunes is just like, I try to watch Apple TV, the streaming service, because there's some good shows on there. By the way, good shows on Apple TV, hard as hell to watch them. Because you have Netflix, you have Paramount, you have Hulu, you have everything else but Apple. You log in, boom, you're in. Apple, you got to do two-step authentication to watch something. It is painful. There's no password sharing. There's nothing. It's horrible. And by the time you get there, you're like, you know what? I'm done. I don't want to watch this. Yeah.
And so I don't know what Apple's going to do with this. I suspect it's the reality of the situation is that they want to, I don't know if you saw the reports last week, but Mac sales are way down, like really bad.
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, like 40%. And so, like, the new Mac lineup is pretty good, but, they're really pushing the M2 stuff. I mean, you can get an M2 Mac Mini for like $500, which is cheap, which is great for a Nook machine. But no, there are people that need iMac for flow. Like, there are people that survive in it. But I will say this, though, like alternative theory. But you also have Discord, you have Slack, you have Microsoft Teams, you have WhatsApp. Like, you have so many things that are outside the Apple ecosystem. Like, if you really needed to, you really don't need iMessage.
That's what I've proposed to the family. And the problem is my parents are so anti getting any other app. They're like, they already have like 4 apps on their phone and they're already overwhelmed. iMessage is baked in. It is the default everything for text messaging. And then, you could get a secondary app that then everyone would connect to, and then that app would be the same for everyone. But there's, that's people aren't. It's Nathan. It's the difference between opt in and opt out. Opt out. 90% of people are going to stay, and 10% are going to leave. Opt in. 90% of people are not going to opt in, and 10% will.
This is what Windows people and Linux people do not understand about Mac people. Like, this is what they don't understand. If you go to Best Buy right now and pick up a Mac, any Mac, any iPhone, any iPad, anything, you bring it home, you will have access to Safari browser, you'll have access to iMessage, you'll have access to FaceTime, you'll have access to GarageBand, you'll have access to Pages, you'll have access to all this software out of the box. Literally, you can be productive in 10 minutes. Maybe none of this software is the best, so to speak, but you will have access to everything. With Windows, it is a minefield. Like, they took away People app. They took away the contact list. They replaced Paint with, you know what I mean? I recently
helped someone who they bought a computer, didn't use it for like a year and a half because they said it was slow and it wasn't very good. They brought it over after it being pretty much untouched. It was like a $1,200, $1,000 laptop. They brought over, that thing had so much bloatware on it that it came default from wherever the heck they bought it, that it took me 3 to 4 hours to uninstall and restart, uninstall, restart, uninstall, restart every single piece of bloatware. And it ran pretty good after everything that we did. But man, out of the box, Windows PCs are nigh unusable.
Oh, I'll tell you this right now. You shouldn't have to do this, but the best thing to do is just factory reset and like put a clean version of Windows.
Yes.
Because that's the only way to really get that crap off. But even then, Windows has deals with OEMs. Like, if you have a name brand Lenovo or something, they will detect what you have and put that bloatware back on sometimes now. But like last week, there was a big controversy, a kerfuffle about snipping tool, right? You know, print screen on Windows, like snipping tool, print screen.
Yeah.
You know, like they have all this stuff. I get it. But like the default apps, like, you know, they're changing mail. Like, you can't just have mail on Windows. You have to have mail and calendar, which means you have to have different accounts. Like, you just can't have separate. But there's no contact app anymore. Like, that's not a problem with Macintosh. Like, I will give them credit. Like, there are separate apps. They do their thing. They work very, very, very well. And if you are into that system, it's on everything and there's no setup required. It's very simple. I will give Mac credit for that. It's everything else I don't like. But, like, I like the chaos and the messiness. But but I get why people like it.
Right. So circling back to this, and they're getting limited functionality, but I think do you have to link an iPhone to Bluetooth, your Windows account to be able to use it?
Possibly, but to be honest with you, though, like, Apple people link their stuff to iCloud, right? And and there are ways to link. By the way, here's another thing: if you want to link your iCloud, which you can, to Windows, like Outlook or something,
right?
You have to go into your iCloud account, get permissions, and create a key. You have to create a special password because Microsoft and Apple do not play well anymore. Like, you used to be able to use your iCloud account.
Contacts,
Not anymore. Now it'll forbid you. So you got to go into iCloud and you got to generate a new passkey that will be your password on Windows, because it's like an extra layer of protection, because everything on Apple is so locked down.
Right.
It is North Korea. But,
and according to the article that you linked here, the phone link feature, which is putting iMessage on Windows 11 through the phone link feature, will only be supported while the phone is continually connected via Bluetooth. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's something. It's better than nothing. And like I said, if you're on Windows and you just look, if you're using a Windows machine, chances are your phone's right there anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, I get it. It's something
better than nothing, which is exactly what we've been dealing with before.
Yeah, exactly. It's better than what you had yesterday, which is nothing. But I'll say this. I don't know. Like I said, it's maybe they're not compatible. Like Windows, like the Windows people and the Macintosh people and the Linux people, they're really so different. Like, maybe they don't go together. It's like I
refuse to believe that. And I know Apple is working on its own operating system with its own hardware, with its own blah 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 blah. But still, it works. It's technology. You can make these things see each other.
No. What I mean is, like, I was playing I was playing with an Xbox console a couple weeks ago. We had an Xbox Series S, and I was playing with it, or X, one of the two, both of them actually, the S and the X. I like the S, by the way. And they put Age of Empires on the console.
The original?
Age of Empires 2, excuse me, Age of Empires, the best one. And lordy, they tried. But there are certain things you just can't do with a controller. And it's just like, I get it, but it's like, instead of having a half-baked experience here and a half-baked experience there, I kind of like the idea that Apple is doing their own crazy, weird thing. Maybe it's not for me on everything, I get it. But like, it's like people who complain about Windows 11, like, oh, I can't do the taskbar, I can't do this. Or no, Linux people. I know I'm going to piss off everybody. Linux people are like, oh, how come my Windows game won't run at 4K? Well, you're on a Linux machine. You know, like, if you want all the goodness of a Windows without Windows, I get it. So instead of bitching, just get Windows, then you won't have to bitch. But it's like, I get what you're complaining about, but like, Apple's are designed for a certain subset of people. Like, and to be fair, Windows have become more like Apple over the last 10 years than Apples have become like Windows.
True.
Like, you have a Microsoft account, you have an App Store, you have this and that. Like, all that stuff is from Apple, right? There is not a shred of Windows on the other thing.
Those are, and really it comes down to, those are just better ways to do software, to have a central place that you go, you search for something and you download it, as in an app store, was just the natural evolution of, how to get software, because going to in individual sites and poking around, maybe downloading the wrong thing potentially, just not that good. Just one repository made more sense.
To be fair though, but there's innovation in the chaos though. Like, you would have never had a Steam, or you would have never had like these GitHub things appear exclusively on Macintosh, because Apple would have been so locked down. You need that creative chaos. You need the American spirit of the Windows environment, which is like, okay, you're going to get some viruses, right? It's like, you're going to get a virus.
Before we start manifest destiny our way through software, great point about that. And obviously with iMessage coming to Windows, maybe fingers crossed, one day our green dot friends and our blue selves will be able to intermingle and send not memes, emojis. Memes are universal. Emojis, not so much.
Just don't judge my text message by the color of its dot, but by the content of its animated GIF.
Yes, they're all awful GIFs. Now, with that being said, Sony. Let's switch over real quick. Sony, because we're going to talk a little bit about Nintendo, and now we're going to talk about later on in the show with the Mario movie and all that and more. But now we're going to talk about Sony and the PlayStation 5. Nathan, I'm beginning to think that if there's ever been a record when it comes to how do I say this? A record when it comes to consoles, they seem to get broken all the time. Or at least this isn't breaking a record. Well, actually it says record breaking right there. But, between the Switch, the PS5, the PS4, the PS3, so many of these consoles, all of them seem to outdo each other. And you know what? It's kind of fun, because I've been a PC gamer for a long time. I've also been huge into Xbox, so the Xbox hasn't really been dominant. But I gotta say, Nathan, consoles really prove that people just want and actually are kind of like our conversation with the App Store just a minute ago, people want a simple solution that just works. And consoles bring that to, at this point, 38.4 million people when it comes to PlayStation 5.
Consoles are the iMessage of video games. Like, it's exactly the same thing. It's you get it, you know what you're getting. It's not a surprise. So you don't. But I will say this: I was having a conversation with my game editor, Corey Geller. You've met Corey before, and he was talking about how people are complaining that the new Star Wars Jedi game runs like crap on PC. And we had he's like, it runs fine on my PC. I said, Corey, you have like a $3,000 PC. You have like an RTX 470. Not even
a GTX 4090 runs the game at 40 FPS. Yeah,
okay, but that's what I was telling him. I was like, but here's the thing though. What do people expect? Like, when you read a review of a PC, I'm going to make this short. I could soliloquy about this all day. But when you read a review of a PC, a video card, you hear these generic, meaningless stats that don't mean anything.
What? You don't care about how many CUDA cores it has?
No, it's like, they'll say, oh, this card gets 40 frames. No, it doesn't. Like the card doesn't give you anything. The card attaches to a PC. What PC do you have? What motherboard do you have? How much RAM do you have? What CPU do you have? That all makes a big difference. You put a $5,000 video card in a 12-year-old AMD processor, it's going to run like crap. You can't just say, you can't compare PCs to consoles because they are two different things. Yep. A console is one or two configurations, possibly one or two, right? In the case of Xbox, developers are developing only for that. They do everything for this. They figure out tricks. And the PC world is the stars. It's a billion different fragments that somehow magically maybe work. And if they don't, if the game isn't optimized perfectly, it's because there's no such thing as PC. There's PCs, right? And so whenever you read a video, here's your good friend Nathan giving you a lesson. When you're reading a review of a video card and they say generically, this card gets this and that, not true. Not true. It doesn't exist. That is on their test PC, which is probably very different than your test PC. But consoles have introduced a little of that nonsense, especially the PlayStation 5, because you have a lot of games have performance mode and they have resolution mode or whatever it's called. Mm-hmm. So you either get 60 frames in 1080p or you get 30 frames in 4K or some version of it. If you add RTX to the mix, it's going to be even more. Like I was playing Resident Evil 4 remake. It's like 500 options for hair.
Yeah.
It's like, what? This is Vidal Sassoon? But what I'm saying is, the PlayStation 5 sold a lot because you know why? People like it. People want it. It has not been available. Sony put it on the market. Boom. People wanted it. And it sold 1 billion. Well, not 1 billion. It sold like 38 million in 3 years.
Right.
So that's a lot. Sales have gone way, 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 way up. I think they sold 20 million in a year because it's available. I snapped a screenshot.
So 11.5 million in 2020. 11.5 in 2021, 19.1 million in 2022, which brings it up, of course, to 38.4.
When originally it came out in 2020, it was during the pandemic, but there was another reason Sony didn't put it in stores, or Microsoft didn't put their consoles in stores. It had nothing to do with the pandemic. It had to do with them watching all that footage of stores being looted and people stealing game consoles and iPhones. They did not want their PlayStations looted.
Yeah, so. and also I'm seeing more and more stories about scalpers and how supply and demand are finally, kind of catching up to each other, and scalpers are getting screwed because they can't move their product that they scalped before. Awesome. Scalping and Nathan, I think that's something that people really need to focus on as well, is because the Switch, say what you want about the Switch, it was old hardware when it came out, and it continues to be old hardware, obviously.
Well,
but
to be fair, the PlayStation was old hardware when it came out.
But I do want to say, Switch was much less affected by the chip shortage because it was old hardware, and the new Xbox and the new PlayStation were competing with each other because they were both using AMD. They were way more affected by the chip shortage during its launch.
It was a perfect storm of a couple things. The Switch came out in 2017, and you're right, it was repurposed NVIDIA hardware. The Switch is the only game console currently that runs NVIDIA hardware. Mm-hmm. The PlayStation and the Xbox all run AMD, which is fine. But the thing is, the Switch is repurposed NVIDIA Shield hardware, like it's Pascal architecture, so it's based on like 2016, 2015 hardware. Nintendo actually underclocked it even further. Like the Switch can run faster than it does, but Nintendo doesn't want the console melting. It's one of the reasons why the NVIDIA Shield sounds like a chainsaw when you play it, because it has fans. But It was a perfect storm. The Switch came out 3 years before the pandemic. It launched with probably the most celebrated video game in our life, in modern history, Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Mm-hmm. And when the pandemic hit, it was a perfect storm again for Nintendo because they had a sizable established user base, and the games that were playable on the Switch were much more suited to playing at home and with family. Right. And PlayStation, of course, launched much higher price. So did Xbox, with virtually no software, limited availability for whatever reason, chip shortages and strident anti-theft protections, and it continued for 2 years. And what's funny is the demand was always there. People always wanted a PlayStation 5. Like, I'm sorry, Xbox, but you're not really part of this equation. I'm just being honest here. And again, that's Microsoft's doing, because Microsoft de-incentivized the Xbox as a platform by making every piece of software available on Windows, like everything. In fact, not only did they make it available then, they made it available on the first day on Game Pass. You did not need an Xbox console to play Halo or Gears of War or Sea of Thieves or anything. It was all available on Windows, which you probably already had. You didn't need one. That's just their problem. Mm-hmm. And their dreams of becoming a streaming service, again, were dashed by low interest and EU regulations and all this stuff. But the fact is that there's a movie that came out 30 years ago called Awakenings with Robert De Niro and Robin Williams. Have you ever seen it?
No.
It's where Robin Williams plays this doctor, and his patients are in perpetual comas for like 30 years as teenagers. They try this medication, and they wake out of their coma, and suddenly they're 50 years old. Like, they were teenagers, and then all of a sudden they're 50. And when they come out of the coma, they're just like, oh my God, I'm enjoying life. That's the PlayStation 5. Like, this thing was available since 2020. Like I said, it technically by PC standards, it's old news now. It's old technology. Right. But as soon as that damn thing hit the stores, boom, people wanted it. Like, people really wanted this thing, right? They really wanted it. And they're enjoying it now. It's crazy. Like they're enjoying their second run.
I blame Call of Duty and FIFA. Always Call of Duty and FIFA.
You know what I mean? And it didn't help that Sony, again, exasperated the situation by taking their AAA titles, all of them, every single major piece of PlayStation hardware, the big software, the Call of Duties, not Call of Duties, the Horizon Zero Dawns, the God of Wars, they were all bi-platform. Like, you could play them on PlayStation 4. That's a trick that console people do, by the way. Nintendo did this too. Like, they will create inferior versions for the last generation to supplement lost income. Like, when Nintendo was losing out with the Wii U 10 years ago, believe it or not, they had Smash Brothers. Smash Brothers on the Nintendo Wii sold 30 million copies. There's only 11 million Wii U's. They're not going to sell 30 million copies. So they had to create a second version for the Nintendo DS or 3DS to supplement. That's what Sony had to do for years with the PlayStation. They had to create two versions. Yeah. And they don't need to anymore. Like,
they don't need to, but they still are. They still are, though.
No, they actually cut the cord on Horizon Zero Dawn, the DLC that just came out. I forget what it's called.
I didn't know that. So the DLC is not available for PS4s.
No, it's just PS5.
Because I know that the game was. So
yeah, the game was, and people are mad, but that's just how it goes. Like,
that's new. I didn't know that.
It's kind of like the advantage becomes a disadvantage. Like, I told you that the Switch was built on Pascal architecture, which is the same as the Titan X, which was the phenomenal video card.
Right.
But the architecture allowed the Switch to do tricks that the hardware wouldn't otherwise do. It could do like render scaling and everything. Like, even though it was underpowered, it was still powerful. That's why games like Doom Eternal can be scaled down to fit the Switch hardware, Witcher 3. Sure, they don't look the best, but they look pretty good. It's playable. Yeah. When you have that, and the advantage for the PlayStation 4 and the 5 is that you could scale PlayStation 5 games down. The problem, though, is that if you only do PlayStation-made PlayStation 4 quality games, you're not getting the most out of the hardware. So the only way to do that is you have to cut the old generation off, let the developers play with a new tool set, and don't worry about last gen stuff. The PlayStation 5, because it's successful now, you are going to see software on that console in about 3 years that's going to blow your mind. Like, you're going to see games on the PlayStation 5, if they do it well, it's going to make it very difficult to justify a $3,000 video card.
Yeah, it was just funny that we were just talking about the last Jedi Survivor game that came out, and it's like it runs better on PS5 than it does on PC, regardless of your hardware.
It runs consistently, I'll say that. And it's not necessarily because the PlayStation 5 is more powerful, the PC is less powerful. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with software optimization. And if the history of video games is that.
Yeah, in about a month, I bet actually it has to. A $3,000 or $4,000 computer has to run better than a $500 console, and they just didn't prioritize optimizing for PC. They did it for console because they knew what they were going to work with.
Well, you saw that last month with the Last of Us, a game that came out last year on the PlayStation 5, which was itself a remake, the remaster, right? Of original, and it ran like garbage on the PC. And the problem, though, it has nothing to do with your PC. And this is a problem again with testing, is that power alone dictates nothing. It dictates nothing. Look, it doesn't matter. It's what they do with it, and they can do a lot more with a console. Like that, you'll see a lot more experimental stuff on PC, but you'll see a lot more consistency. The one thing everybody's looking forward to, the one thing that the big litmus test for the gaming industry this year comes out in 2 weeks. It's possibly the last major game on the Nintendo Switch. It's The Legend of Zelda.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that comes out in 2 weeks. By every measure, it's going to be a massive success. Every measure. People have complained it doesn't look that much better. Like they're pushing the Switch to the limit. The Switch has been pushed to its limits a long time ago.
I've never met a single Switch fan or Nintendo fan that was like, yeah, the graphics were sick. That's the reason I got it. Not really what a Switch person really cares about. They love Animal Crossing, which looks like a 90s cartoon. I mean, there is
something to be said though about how Nintendo produced software for the Switch tends to look better than it's supposed to.
Yes, of course.
You do see hobbyists and everything, and this is a huge thing, and I don't want to get into, of which I am one, that there is something kind of magical about taking hardware that's not, air quotes, supposed to do things, and it does those things. And I think, you have companies like Nintendo that have obviously different development kits.
You say that, and then I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever had more of a Linux detractor on the show than you. And yet you are talking about making hardware do what it's not supposed to. That is like a core tenet of Linux.
Yeah, but Linux is software. I'm talking about like taking chipsets that aren't supposed to do ray tracing, or not supposed to do, or not supposed to do 4K rendering, or not supposed to do whatever the hotness is today. Like there is some satisfaction. Like you see this huge community of people going back and making new games for old hardware, like old consoles. Like I could go off all day about this kind of stuff, but there is something interesting, and I think it's because I come from a generation that grew up in the arcade, and when you go to the arcade and you come home, the games look nothing like the arcade. In fact, people say, "Oh, bring the arcade home, arcade gameplay," because arcades were like, the theater. Yeah. And nowadays, your cell phone has better graphics than any arcade. But
That's true.
So where do we search for this? We look at the software achievement of someone who can make a game like Doom Eternal, a game that was designed for bleeding edge PCs, 3 years ago, run on something like the Switch. Like, it shouldn't happen. It just shouldn't happen, but it does.
But it does.
And it's like, that's interesting. And it's and it really, I guess what I'm saying is, Ben, it makes you wonder, like, how lazy are these developers that can't get a game similar?
I honestly don't think it's
hardware.
I'm going to throw them a bone. It's not lazy. It is deadlines. They are so crunch for time that they just optimizing. Nathan definitely comes second after creating it.
That's because I actually think it's a little both, though. I think it's because developers today have gotten so used to development systems they didn't develop. They're using Unreal. They're using Unity. They're using these cross-platform machines that are not developed. They are not designed for one piece of hardware. You look at companies like the company that did, I keep going back to Doom Eternal, Panic Button. Yeah. That is actually more optimized for the Switch than any version of Doom Eternal was for anything else, because they had to build their own development tools for that hardware. Like, they had to do tricks to make that work, right? Whereas Doom Eternal on everything else used open source systems that used, publicly available APIs that they didn't create. They didn't make that stuff. So they're using off-the-shelf tools, so to speak. And so, so if Hogwarts Legacy runs better on a PlayStation 5 than it does a $5,000 PC, that's probably why. It's because they had one thing to work with. They didn't have to worry about everything else. And like you said, deadlines.
And that's always been an appeal of the consoles. So there's that. We're going to go ahead and skip on over to another story. And this has to do with... graphics don't mean everything. That's really what it comes to Nintendo, where they do have good graphics and things do look good, but also a lot of Nintendo games, graphics aren't what sell it. Good gameplay loop, rewarding, established IPs, whatever it may be that draws you to these games really brings you there. And a game that really highlights that, and I know that you had a really good review of this up on your site, Nathan, when it first came out, Vampire Survivors. Very, very fun, simple game at its face, where, even in the farthest depths of the gameplay, where you are actually, where it actually it becomes a time crunch, it becomes a little bit of strategy, it becomes something that you're actively doing things, the entire 30 minutes that you're actually playing, all well and good, but it was still ASWD. Really, at the end of the day, pick your power up and move ASWD left, right, up, and down, and kill massive hordes of creatures without dying. It was very simple, but it was very addictive, very fun.
It was addictive up to a point. Like, I think everybody kind of got burned out on a certain point because there is no depth. But
did you beat all the secret bosses? Did you beat all the secret bosses?
I don't even think I got through the first game, to be honest. At a certain point, you become so overpowered that you just literally just get your character set.
It seems like that, but Nathan, I will say, for anyone who doesn't really know this, and it's not really spoilery, like at first you're just kind of standing there, you create, you get power-ups, you unlock things, you kind of do the same thing, a dozen times over, but then you start to realize that while the maps are, seemingly kind of procedurally
random,
generated, they're repetitive, and they just kind of go over. Nathan, like a couple of levels, you have to constantly head up in a direction, left in a direction, right in a direction for 25 plus minutes in a single direction to be able to get to the secret boss. Like, you don't just stand there, you actually have to go do objectives. And that's where the game gets a little bit more in depth, but not much more.
Vampire Survivors might be the ultimate stoner game. Like,
yes,
there is almost no input from the player.
It's very chill. Again, it's just up, down, left, fun, right, though. And you get to choose your power ups 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, it's not that much more complicated. Now we bring all this up because there's a news article saying that, like Netflix, Netflix tends to create garbage. Well, they're somehow going to turn Vampire Survivors into an animated television series through Netflix.
Yeah.
I have no idea how they're able to do this. So
it has to be a comedy. Like, it has to be like a Venture Brothers comedy. Like, it has to be something where the characters are, say, irreconcilable things. Like, it has to be. Look, I'll tell you this. The format this could be? It could be like Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Like, it has to be so irreverent. It has to be so irreverent and so, Aqua Teen Hunger Force. It has to be so funny, and so it has to be like 15 minutes, like a good comedy, like a Cartoon Network show. Like, literally, like, the episode cannot be longer than the game. Like, it has to be short.
I don't know where they can really go with this, because like there's not really dialogue. The characters are like non-existent. It's very bare bones. Yeah.
No, it's less than bare bones. There's no characters. There are sprites. There's no story. There are levels. Like, there's no gameplay. There is up, down, left, right. There's more gameplay in Pac-Man than there is in Vampire Survivors. But I will say this. That being said, my old adage, there's no such thing as a bad idea, just bad execution, right? So I didn't see the Netflix thing, but when you say Netflix, that gives me worried because they've really screwed up a lot.
Yeah.
But
I do like how the announcement comes with the creator of the game, which is a little indie game that he said he worked on weekends, saying that it's great to be partnering up with such experienced and talented people to make the show. I do wonder if they've realized that there isn't a single vampire in Vampire Survivors, though. So
that would be fun. Like I said, I think he's aware of how silly it is. But look, there's nowhere else to go. It's just up. Like, there's no way it could be bad. Like, they cannot take it seriously. It has to be tongue in cheek. It has to, because this is basically a ripoff of the Castlevania motif for the most part. Like, it's basically, and which makes it fun. Like I said, Vampire Survivors is very charming. It's a very charming what it is, but it is very immediate.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going in for anything else other than the experience of having said I played it.
Yes, and while it's addictive, but it's addictive for about 10 hours. If you really play through everything, if you kind of Wikipedia and Google things, it's addictive for 10 hours, and then you are literally done with the game. Like, unless you get the urge, you're done.
10 hours is stretching it. Like, I'll just say this: 10 hours That's
You
not,
think?
maybe is that cumulatively or concurrent?
No. Well, I mean, you could play for 10 hours in one go, but I mean, like the whole game takes 10 hours and then you've done everything in the game.
Well, I'll say this. As someone who grew up with the Atari and I told you arcade stuff, I'm totally fine with a game that has no ending, right? I'm totally fine with that because it's testing your skill. My only problem with Vampire Survivors is that up until a certain point is very much an 80s arcade game, but you do reach a certain moment where it becomes impossible to stay interested because you've done everything. Like the game will literally come out and kill you because you can't go any further. It's like you're dead.
So that's really one of the things is that, Nathan, you've obviously played the game when the kind of when the death or whatever it is comes out and kills you. That's actually who you're supposed to beat, and that's when the game really starts, is after you beat death for the first time. You're supposed to be able to kill him consistently over and over again. So,
Look,
just so you know.
If you wanted this game to be a real challenge, don't play it on a console. Don't play it on a PC where you have a controller. Play it on iPhone where you got to play that damn thing.
Play it on a gaming cabinet. Absolutely.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Try moving your finger around the screen for 30 minutes.
There you go.
Make it funny. Just make it funny. Make it short. And you got a winner. It's not hard.
The only person they really name dropped in the announcement was the head of the studio that picked this up. Also made the Sonic the Hedgehog series movies. So we'll see. Like I said,
We'll see.
they have almost nothing to work with. So whatever they end up making could be good. We'll see.
Yeah, go for it. I mean,
Could be fun.
I could buy Vampire Survivor gummy bears in the store. Like they do that with every other game. Like Terrarium has candy. So
I like gummies. Anyways, speaking of which, let's go ahead and switch completely to a different gear, although pretty much in the same vein. A very robust and successful movie, Super Mario Brothers, jumps past the new milestone with 900 million plus. So probably by the time of this reading, about $1 billion. This came out a day or two ago, so it's probably hit about $1 billion. So this is a success.
It's more than that. We did a podcast on this. My cohort Ethan Brem and I, who do a monthly movie thing, and you and I have talked about this for a long time. I've always said this was going to be a litmus test for things to come. I've also put a caveat that I always thought the movie will pass or fail depending on how reverential they were to the music. Turns out I was more right than I thought. I was so right, I was wrong. Not only was the music perfect, but the movie actually spawned a hit song with Peaches, 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 Peaches. Did you hear Peaches, Peaches, Peaches?
I did hear Jack Black singing Peaches, 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 Peaches.
Did you see the video?
I did not see the video. I've only heard the music.
Okay. Will you do me a favor while we're talking? For your share screen, it only takes 50 seconds. While we're talking, pull up YouTube Peaches, 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 Peaches.
I would totally do that, Nathan, if I wasn't afraid of the copyright strike as soon as I upload this video.
No, don't even put the song on. Just put they don't care about the video. Just blunt the music. It's a top 50 song. It's a minute and a half long. It's just Jack Black as Bowser singing Peaches, 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 Peaches.
Yeah.
In a Meatloaf style death metal piano ballad. And
no,
not that one. Not that one.
Not that one?
No,
Which
not
one?
that one. That was not as fun. Go back and type in Jack Black Peaches Peaches. Like there's I forget the company that does.
So the actual Jack Black, not Bowser.
The actual Jack Black is wearing this green colored
Yes,
Bowser
he is definitely
cap.
doing a yeah.
And he starts writhing around. Look at that. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
And he's having so much fun.
Did you see the latest Mandalorian with
Jack
him
Black?
in it? Yeah.
Like most of the world, I've given up.
Aw.
And I saw.
I liked it. It was fun. It was fun.
I have thoughts about that, but
still,
no, I would just, but still, there's real talk that this is going to be nominated for an Oscar for Best Song. I guarantee you, doesn't matter. Look, here's the thing. You ever listen to the best song at the Oscars? No song in like 30 since Celine Dion has been nominated that anyone cared about. It's all garbage. Nobody cares. People like this song. Let him show up at the Oscars playing in that outfit, playing Peaches, Peaches, Peaches to a melody of Mario music and you got a million people watching. Like, that's just how it goes. People like this. They like, look at that. Look at that. He's writhing on the floor. You're laughing.
Yeah.
So, it's a fun song. And did you see the movie?
No, I did not actually. Not yet.
You're the one.
Yeah, you're the one. I guess it's not that I didn't have interest. It's just I didn't have time. Like I said, this month flew by. But
you have to bring kids with you. By the way, this is very much a kids movie. But
I don't know where to find children. I don't know where to find children. But
I've been told schoolyards. Yeah. I've been told
Nathan.
What?
Nathan. Where do children come from? Where do babies come from?
The storks.
There we go. Thank you. No, but
we'll make some. You're married now. Go get some kids, man. Bring them to Mario. That's what it's for.
Yes, that is the societal duty. But I will say that this I did not see it. I want to see it. It looked like a very good movie. And despite all the outrage that, they didn't voice cast Mario, who everyone thought they were going to voice cast Mario.
Irrelevant argument.
Yeah, exactly. People still loved it. So, and it sounds like you liked it. So
I liked it a lot. I'll say this. I liked it a lot because I am the target audience, just older. Like, this is something I wanted something fun. I wanted something respectful to the source material. I wanted something that looked good. I wanted something that with no angst, no politics and everything. I got that in spades. And I think everybody did. And if you read the reviews from the critics, I don't do this very much. I never do this. Well, sometimes. But if you listen to the podcast, Ethan, I said the critics were wrong. And it's not that they're wrong because their opinion doesn't matter, but they're actually wrong, like on this movie. And there are criticisms where there's no plot, there's no narrative, there's no story. And I thought to myself, well, why is that? Like, Mario's not famous for having a narrative. Mario's not famous for character depth.
I mean, the biggest narrative in Mario is 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, 2-1, 2-2. Like, yeah.
No, Princess Peach makes a cake, but it's like when I used to work with these editors and they hated martial art movies, right? I had one guy who hated martial arts. I hate these movies. There's no story, whatever. I had another guy hated Jackie Chan movies. How come he's Jackie in every movie? Why are the stories so thin? Where's the character development? You're not going to a Jackie Chan movie for the story. You're going for the theatrics and the special and the stunts.
Right.
You're going for that sort of thing. And what if I go see a baseball movie? How many times have you been dragged to a sports movie for a sport you don't like? And like everybody's cheering, like this is so triumphant, and you're watching, but no one's explaining the sport to you. But if you like the sport, then you like the movie. Like, that's good enough because you come in already biased for the sports movie. Mm-hmm. With the video game movie, what I think Super Mario does that no other gaming movie has ever done. This is the first video game movie, certainly the first big budget one, that is not ashamed to be a video game. Like, people like the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. And I've heard people say, so Sonic's better than this. No, it's not. Sonic's not a video game movie. No, it's not. It's a video game character, but it's
superhero
in our
movie?
World. Well, no, but like, I'll get to that. Was actually the excuse I used. But like, you watch Sonic the Hedgehog, it's not Sonic in Sonic's world. It's Sonic in our world. He's going to a wedding. He's going to the supermarket. He's not in Sonic world. He's in our world, right? Same with all this stuff.
So you're saying Sonic is a glorified Ted?
No, more like E.T. a little bit. Okay. Like E.T.'s out of the environment. And it's fun. It's a fine movie. I had fun with it. Like, first point in the second. But Mario, he shows up. This is a Mario movie that exists in this universe. Like, it literally mimics playing the game. And it causes you to sort of rethink how you do the visual landscape and how you have to look at this. And you have to say, okay, maybe there's not a lot of narrative there, but I understand what's going on. I understand the way the mechanics are playing, and I understand the way this is happening. And when you come to grips with this, then you can appreciate it on a different level. And I think what the critics do is the critics come in with this bias. A character has to have motivation. A character has to have a character arc. A character has to have this. They have to change. They have to. The script has to have angst. How come Mario and Luigi don't fight?
I gotta say, and this might be behind a lot of the burnout for the the Marvel movies and stuff like that. I think everyone's really tired. And I'm totally talking out of nowhere. No one's saying, or I'm sure people are saying it, but anyways, I'm getting my information from nowhere. Don't listen to me. Everyone's tired of the hero's journey, of come from nothing, crisis, redemption, kind of gaining power in some way, and then resolving the dilemma. People are tired of that same basic arc over and over again.
Well, I think they're tired of it being mishandled. Like, I think they're tired of it because everything has to be about subverting expectations. You can't have if you watch Marvel movies and to some extent the DC stuff, everything is like Quentin Tarantino said, it's a bunch of teenagers. Nobody's talking like adults. Nobody's making sacrifices. Everybody's dying. They're coming back to life. No one's having sex. There's no adult relationship. No, it's not realistic anymore. You watch Ant-Man. Ant-Man is the opposite of creativity. Like, the first two were fun, but the third one, it's so lethargic and so dead weight. There's nothing there. Where, I remember watched Creed this year, Creed 3. Not the best Creed movie, but pretty good movie. And you have a very masculine, very aggressive, hero who has to go through this journey. You have a bad guy. Okay, it's comic book style, but it does the comic book thing better than any comic book movie in a long time. And the movie was a big hit, right? You have Mario. Right. Mario's not known for narrative. We don't want to see Mario's origin story and how Mario has to do this and Mario this. His brother gets kidnapped. He's got to team up with Peach. They have a lot of fun adventures in Mushroom Kingdom. It's dazzling. The animation is probably the best you've ever seen. It's an hour and a half long. You hear Mario music. You hear Mamma Mia, woohoo! He rides the car. He battles Donkey Kong. He battles Bowser. He swings Bowser. No spoilers. He wins. But, he teams up with Luigi. This is exactly what you want. And you've never seen this before in this way. And that's why this movie is, let me put it this way. Can I put it in perspective? Mm-hmm. By the end of this weekend, in America, the Super Mario Brothers movie will be the third highest grossing animated movie of all time in America. By the end of this weekend, just this weekend, in the world, it will be number 10 in the highest grossing animated movies of all time. By the end of its theatrical run in America, it will most likely be the highest grossing animated movie of all time. That's Super Mario Brothers. Because this movie does something that the Disney movies have forgotten to do. It has done something that all the animated movies have forgotten to do.
Don't say have fun.
No, not have fun. It lets you relax. There's no angst. It's bright, it's colorful. And besides that whole thing, forget everything I just said. It's Mario. Mm-hmm. And this is the distinction. This movie was made with the gratis of Nintendo, like Shigeru Miyamoto, like the father of Mario, the father of Zelda. Nintendo has been sitting on the most valuable IP in the world for 30 years. Because they botched it through the roof with the other Super Mario movie 30 years ago, they have been reluctant to let these things go. Here's the thing. Who's the head of Disney? Mickey Mouse, so to speak. Who's the head of Warner Brothers? Bugs Bunny. When's the last time you saw either of those characters in anything remotely relevant for 15 years? They have been tucked away. They've been put in a shelf. It's copyright violations.
I don't know. Space Jam 2 came out. I mean, that had Bugs Bunny.
Space Jam 2 was herpes. Nobody liked that thing. No, like literally that actually proves my point, is that you see Warner Brothers doesn't know what to do with their own characters, right? They botched it. But you see Mario, there's never been a time in your life, Ben. What are you, 40, 50? No, I'm kidding. There's never been a moment of your life when Mario has not been popular. Never. There has never been a moment of your life when Mario was not fronting like well-respected product, whether it's Super Mario, whether it's Mario Kart, Mario Teacher, whatever. Yeah, there's been a few duds. But Mario's always been there. Kids don't have to be told to like Mario.
It is very telling when even Super Smash Bros., which is, all of the IPs, Mario is still, the poster child for Super Smash Brothers.
Well, not only that, though, Mario, the reason this movie was so important, the reason I'm so excited about this, the reason this movie was so important, it had to be this one. It had to be this. There's been a million video game movies. Trust me. Since the 80s,
not the Pikachu one, not Detective Pikachu.
Not Detective Pikachu. Like, there have been moderate successes. Like, the highest grossing video game movie before this was Warcraft, and only because of China. But,
yeah.
But video game movies usually peter out about $150, $200 million, right? And there have been some successes. There have been Resident Evil has been the most successful franchise. The Lara Croft movies 20 years ago were great, not the remake. There's been Uncharted, made a little bit of money, but they've always been movies with video game characters, right? Let's make a traditional Hollywood movie with a video game character. There's never been a video game movie that has been a video game. The closest we've ever had was the Doom movie with The Rock, when there was like a 2-minute sequence where they're actually first-person shooting.
At the very end where he's going around with the perspective and
Well, I was watching the Tetris movie, right? Yeah. And there's a high-speed chase through Moscow, and for no reason they start pixelating the screen. And I thought to myself, why? Why do they pixelate? Like, you don't watch a movie about a book and they start flipping pages. That you don't watch that. Like they're so ashamed. They're so ashamed. Or like the Hulk from 2003 when Ang Lee made comic book panels. Like, oh, I'm a comic book. No, Super Mario. At no point in time is Super Mario ashamed of its roots. It is proud of its roots. Like the biggest complaint that the voice of Mario, he's in there. Charles Martinet, he plays two characters. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's fantastic if you spot it. Two characters. But nice. Like the music, the characters are there, the music's there. The reason this movie is making so much money isn't because it's a babysitter. I actually looked at the stats. And people said, oh, it's a kid's movie. 60% of the people going to this movie are over 30. 60%. And like I said, it's going to make it'll be at $1 billion by the end of this weekend. How far will it go? But going back to that, it's unleashed Nintendo. If Nintendo has been making theme parks, Nintendo has been buying animation studios. Nintendo it now probably has the biggest animated movie of all time, and they're about to unleash the biggest game of the year with Zelda. Like Nintendo's IPs and franchises are the biggest in the world right now. Disney can't even compare. Disney's not even in the top 3. Like this is different. Please don't screw it up. So what's next? Legend of Zelda? Metroid? Probably. Like this is different. The age of comic book movies is at an end, or it's coming to an end. There's no interest in the Marvels. Have you seen it? Looks like a TV show. Looks terrible. Yep. Like The Flash, which we watched before, looks okay, but it's a dead franchise.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, fingers crossed for whatever they're going to do with that franchise after. Like, but also, man, it kind of makes you think, is it too late to start a whole new universe? Because that's the feeling I'm getting from people talking about the Marvel movies is like, I personally, I tried to catch up on the Marvel movies. It feels like doing homework sometimes. Well, it sucks.
I told you I would tell you how I think they could save the Flash before the show. So James Gunn, he's got a movie coming out. He's got Guardians of the Galaxy 3 coming out next week. It looks pretty good, right? James Gunn has been doing pretty good. Like he was fired for wrong reasons from Disney a couple of years ago.
Yep.
For tweets.
For 10, 15-year-old tweets. Yeah,
for tweets that were tasteless, but they weren't offensive, really.
Right.
He went to DC and he made the best DC movie. He made The Suicide Squad. He remade it. It was really funny. And he even did a spinoff. He did The Peacemaker, which was really funny. Evidently, he liked working with DC a lot, right? So he went back to Marvel, made one more Guardians of the Galaxy, and then quit. And now he's in charge of DC. He's in charge. He's the Kevin Feige of DC.
Right.
You probably saw this. They already announced they're going to reboot everything in DC. And his first movie is Superman. He's going to reboot. James Gunn is directing and writing the new Superman. And the way he makes it sound, he makes it sound like it should have been, about optimism and hope, right? So maybe with the right people. So you have this Flash movie coming out that's been in development hell for 3 years. And with all due respect to the lead actor, Ezra Miller, nobody's there to see that person. They're there to see Michael Keaton as Batman come back. That's what they want. You watch that trailer, you might as well call it a Batman movie. Michael Keaton's Batman. It's all over the trailer. Even Ben Affleck's in there.
Right.
If this movie's successful, if somehow it makes money and people love it, who the hell knows? Like, are you a Star Trek fan?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, this is my only example. I'm really stretching reality here. So they rebooted. They made the Picard series, right?
Right.
Star Trek Picard. The first season was atrocious, just disrespectful garbage, just absolute. Can I say it? Shite.
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't they make him like useless? Like, they made Picard
they killed him.
Yeah.
They killed him. They turn him into a cybernetic life form.
Yeah, that's what it was.
The second season was even worse. It was even darker. Everyone was swearing. Characters getting tortured. Legacy characters getting killed. Oh no, we don't want this. And then they announced they're going to bring back the old cast, the next generation. And you're like, oh no, they're going to kill Worf. They're going to kill whatever. Like you love these characters, but you don't want these beloved characters in this universe. They don't mix. You know what they did? They just said, screw it. They put him in and they just retconned all of it out. They just jettisoned the first two, like 99% of it, and just restarted right in the middle of the
Probably
show.
For the best.
And you know what? People loved it. They loved it. This is the next generation we should have had all along. Why? Because they said, you know what? All that dark, all that nasty stuff, all that's like, okay, there's a couple swears. but they gave you the characters you knew. You gave your friends one more adventure. They gave people what they wanted, and it worked. So anything could happen. You know what the model is for this sort of thing?
What's that?
You probably never watched it because you're like a baby. But no, I'm just kidding. MASH, the TV show MASH.
I've seen a lot of MASH.
Okay, good. Then MASH was really popular. But MASH, the trick with MASH is that MASH would reboot itself like every 3 years. Mm-hmm. Every 3 years, it would roll new characters in. It would kill off old characters. By the end of the 11 years, it was a very different show.
Yeah.
But it was still MASH, but it was different. And I think that's what you do with stuff. You take what works, right? You say, okay, this clearly doesn't work. Get rid of it. Put in the stuff that does work. Not fan service, but find the stuff that works. Mm-hmm. Like, go watch Seinfeld season 1. Can't watch it. It's unwatchable. But season 2, they kind of got it, right? Simpsons, same way. So find what works.
We just mentioned this before the show, but It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. The first season, Danny DeVito. Second season,
oh my God,
Danny DeVito, and it took it in a way better direction.
You know what's funny about there's a reason that show is the longest running live action show of all time. Mm-hmm. That show reinvents itself every episode. Every episode's a new show. Sometimes it's a musical. Mm-hmm. Or sometimes it's a racist musical.
Yes.
But the funny thing, but what I'm saying is this is the business of creativity. This is not the business of IP management. And that's what I'm trying. That's my whole point. Like anybody who calls it IP is not creative. These are characters. They mean a lot to people. People say the Super Mario movie is nostalgia. They say it's Easter eggs. They say it's toys. And I thought to myself, yes, but what a toy box. Like there are scenes in the movie where Mario is just walking through the Mushroom Kingdom with no dialogue, and he's looking at all this weird stuff going around. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing it for the first time too. We've never seen this stuff on the screen. We've seen Marvel, we've seen superheroes, we've seen fake CG backgrounds, like we've seen movies that look hollow.
Right.
And we've never seen the Mario stuff on a big screen like this. And we're like, okay, I'm okay with this right now. This is new. This is not offensive. This is fun. I'm enjoying this. This is like Wizard of Oz for kids. Yeah. And I remember I called some of my editors and I said, look, the last time I was this excited about a movie being successful, I told you this too, was Top Gun. I remember I told you this. I came out of Top Gun and I said, this movie is something else. This is going to make everybody go to see this. This is something. It's not new though. It's just good.
But it's good.
Yeah, it's good. It nails what it needs to do. We don't even know who the bad guy is. There's no villain, but it just nails what it needs to do. And we don't need lectures. We don't need, we don't need history. We don't need all that stuff. Sometimes you just want to have fun.
I think that is a light introduction to your Movie Time podcast, who you recorded with. Who was on this with you? Ethan Bram. Ethan Bram, yeah.
Yep.
So and Nathan, I think I want you to segue into talking a little bit about the podcast, and then I think we're going to wrap it up because we are over the hour. So,
well, to be fair, I think I kind of did. That's kind of what we talked about a little bit, and that was 2 weeks ago. So it's made even more money, but like the amount of money it makes is irrelevant. Although it does help that it makes $1 billion. But gotcha. it's just that when you go to the movies, right? When you are a consumer. Your role in this is to hand over money and enjoy the product. Mm-hmm. And if you like the product, you keep handing more money over, right? And if you don't, then you don't hand more money. It's capitalism. But it's also creativity because you're rewarding good behaviors. And it's one thing to say, okay, The Lion King's coming out in 2019. I don't like it, but I got to take my kids. Well, here's the deal. Dads and mom, you don't have to take your kids to go see shit. You can go see good things. You don't have to go see that. You can rent a movie. You can do something else with your money, but you are under no obligation to hand your money over to Disney or Illumination. You are allowed to see good things. Yeah. You are allowed to. You're the parent. And thank the gods, the movie gods, that there are actually things being produced that are good, that you can identify with, that you like. What do they call Super Mario? They called it a 5-quadrant movie. I don't know if you're familiar with the term 4-quadrant.
A 5-quadrant?
Yeah. So a 4-quadrant movie is young, old, male, female, right? It hits all the markets. Marvel movies used to do this chef's kiss. They did it perfectly for a while. The Star Wars movies did this perfect, right? The Pixar movies did this. They were great and they were rewarded. But as they started to veer off, as they became a little preachy, as they became a little pandering, as they became a little of this, like you started to see this pull. And people would blame racism. They blamed sexism. They never blamed themselves. They never said, you know what, maybe we screwed up. It must be the fans. The fans are wrong. But the fans know what they want. Mm-hmm. And so, but when a 5-quadrant movie is when you have all that, plus you have generations. Like it's not just young, old thing. It's kids who saw the movie as a kid are now bringing their kids and bringing their kids or whatever, grandkids. And Star Wars had that. It lost it. You know, the Marvel movies had it. They've lost it. The DC movies never had it. Maybe they'll find it. But if Nintendo is to shepherd this new revolution, this would be the second time they've done it. They did it in 1985 with the video game industry. Video game industry was a wreck. It was disastrous. It was dead as a doornail. And what came from the ashes? Super Mario Brothers. And it resurrected an entire industry. It is so damn important that this movie was successful with Mario. It needed to be Mario. It had to be Mario. And it did it. And don't screw it up, Nintendo.
Do you think there's a second, or do you think they're going to go with maybe a Zelda movie?
I think the Mario will be a franchise.
Well, it's not that. I'm sorry. It's not that I'm asking will there be a second, because
there will be
$1 billion, probably going to be a second.
No,
but which will be first, Nathan? Another Super Mario movie or a new IP with a movie, as in like a Zelda or original Pokemon? Yeah.
Miyamoto has already talked about it. They've already done Pokemon stuff, but never on this scale.
Yeah, but like you were saying with like Sonic, like it's not Sonic in Sonic World, it's Pikachu in our world, and it's like
exactly,
you know, yeah.
Well, they used to do that in the 80s a lot, right? Like when you couldn't afford something or you didn't have the creativity, the character would come into the role, like Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, like Smurfs. Number 5 is a lot like you know, fucking
Short Circuit.
Yeah, Short Circuit.
Way, can I blow your mind real quick?
What's that?
Can I blow your mind okay, audience, bear with me here. This is going to take a minute. I'm about to blow your mind. Okay.
What's that?
Have you ever heard of the song "Holding Out for a Hero" by Bonnie Raitt?
Of course.
Bonnie Tyler?
Of course.
Okay. When I was a kid, I said this on the podcast. I saw Short Circuit 2 in the theater like 10 times. Movie is terrible, but I loved it. There is a scene at the end. It takes like 3 minutes where Johnny Five, spoiler for a 35-year-old movie, is damaged and he had to break into a Radio Shack and repair himself, but he's dying and the bad guy's getting away, right? And so in normal movies, you go on a high-speed chase, but Johnny Five's dying. So he has to go like on a mid-speed chase. Mm-hmm. So as Johnny Five is dying violently, he's bleeding out, he's shocking, he's dying. They play Holding Out for a Hero in this high-speed chase. And there's something so authentic about that scene. Even this crappy movie is so authentic. And 20 years later, when I saw Shrek 2, they put that scene in Shrek 2, highest grossing movie of the year. This year alone, in 2 months, I've seen that scene in 2 movies about Nintendo. They had it in Tetris, that high-speed chase through Moscow, when the president of Nintendo is fleeing the KGB. They are playing a Russian version of Holding Out for a Hero. And in Super Mario Brothers, during a training montage, they are playing Holding Out for a Hero as Mario learns to become Super Mario. I'm telling you right now, there's your connection.
That's the recipe for success. You've cracked it.
I cracked it. No one knew, but that's it. You got to do Holding Out for a Hero. It also had music from Kill Bill. But no, to answer your question, I don't know what Nintendo's going to do. They've been so protective of their IP. They've had unprecedented success in the last 6 years.
I feel like they've held out long enough for animation to catch up with the vision that they want to put on the screen.
If I had my way, if I was cautioning Nintendo, and who knows, they probably listen to this, I would say be very careful, but don't be too careful. You've been too careful. Have a little bit of fun. But I think it's pretty obvious the next franchise needs to come from one of two. You need to choose between The Legend of Zelda or Metroid. And I think if you do it correctly, The Legend of Zelda will become a franchise that is bigger than Lord of the Rings.
You know who I would want Metroid to be? Or like who to kind of say, whoever did Judge Dredd. Whoever did Judge Dredd.
Alex, what's this? Judge Dredd or Dredd? The 2012
Dredd, yeah.
Oh, that's a great. You know who did that movie? Let me get his name. Alex.
The more recent one. That movie was gritty.
I love that movie.
It was gritty. It was kind of B movie, but it was great.
No, Alex Garland's great. He does fantastic sci-fi movies all the time. He didn't direct it, but he wrote it. But he directs his own movies now. He did like Ex Machina.
I would want like a style of Metroid like that, for sure.
It would be PG-13, of course, but he could do it. But my advice is this. Here's my advice for both, and this is where I'm going to shut up. If you're going to make a Metroid movie, Samus can't talk. Make her mute.
True.
Make her mute.
We made that mistake with Master Chief.
And here's my proof that'll work. 2021 Best Picture was Coda, a movie about deaf people. Right? We've had deaf people in Marvel movies. We've had sign language. You can do it. Make her deaf at the very beginning. I'm sorry, make her mute. Do not have her talk. It solves a lot of problems. You can do it through storytelling. You can do it. You do not need an actress to speak to be suggestive. Everything could be narrative driven. Right. And if you're going to make a Legend of Zelda movie, make it hybrid live action, and maybe make it hybrid live action. And here's my suggestion. Go watch a movie that came out in 2020 called Love and Monsters. It was one of my favorite movies that year. It was a kind of a low budget movie, but not so low budget. Stars the kid from The Maze Runner, Conan O'Brien something. The way they
Dylan O'Brien.
The way the CG monsters were integrated is the best I've ever seen in a film. And they used a combination of realistic prosthetics and CG. And the monsters look like cartoons, but they look like they fit. They look like Zelda monsters. And the movie was fantastic in the way it integrated them. It was the best I've ever seen in anything. Go compare that to something like Clash of the Titans, the new one, where it's just all CG. It looks crappy. It looks terrible. Take advantage, Nintendo. Put your foot down. Be as strict as you want. Veto everything you don't want. Use the same standard on your games. Like, the world is holding out for a hero. Make the Zelda movie, damn it. No, I'm just kidding. But no, yes. I mean, please don't screw it up. I mean, you have a chance to like reinvent yourself here. Just you got rewarded. You made a good movie with Mario. I don't care what the critics say. People liked it. People liked the movie. So
I think the box office returns alone say it, but it's also good to hear Nathan say it as well. Something that he enjoys. And to be fair, Nathan enjoys a lot, but he also
I hate very little. I hate very little.
Yes, but he'll be critical of many. But ladies and gentlemen, that's about it for today. If you want to find out more, popzara.com or computeramerica.com, where we'll have links to everything that we talked about, including a link over to Popzara where you can find more of this content and him and his writers. So with that being said, Nathan, thank you for joining us. Every last Friday of the month, you can count on it. We'll catch you next time. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.